is the greatest female sprinter in the world.
In many ways, the fate of our nation right now.
7 meters 30.
Well, it's taken a lot of people to get to this point, a lot of generations.
So, you had a brilliant interview with a Formula One engineer that you're now going to tell us about. So first, tell me a bit about it. How was it?
It was very interesting. I mean, you know me, I'm into all kinds of sports, including motorsports. I don't know as much about Formula One as I do about, let's say, winter sports. But obviously the season was quite thrilling and exciting. And we talked about doing an episode around female engineers in Formula One, because obviously that's such an interesting dynamic and insight into such a male-dominated sport and also industry. So that's kind of how I went into this conversation, just being very curious about her journey and how she actually ended up where she is as of today.
And it also touches on two worlds that are usually male-dominated. You get the world sports, but you also get STEM, which is also still heavily dominated by men. So you kind of combine that. So we definitely thought it was a really interesting topic that listeners to this podcast would really love. So you found this woman. Can you tell us a bit about her?
Exactly. So I talked to Andra Patricia Groapa. She's actually an engineer from Romania, and she ended up in the UK and has been working there for a while now. And I think it's quite interesting, exactly as you mentioned before. It wasn't so much a conversation only about her as a woman being in a male-dominated field, but also just working in Formula One as a sport, which is highly dynamic, has so much energy, the thrill, the adrenaline, the highs and the lows. There's so much at stake. And specifically with engineering, so much goes on and so much testing and simulations in the background that actually you see very little on the screen, on race day itself. So it was kind of interesting to get an insight into what that's like, on top of obviously delving into her journey as a woman in those male-dominated subjects, and also how she envisions, the future of motorsports, and also what role women play there as well.
What was something that surprised you that you were not expecting to hear from her?
I thought she was super reflected and aware of her journey, very determined. And I do think a lot of hard work went into her journey. I think it's a tough journey for anyone ending up in such a competitive environment, because believe it or not, there's so many people who want to end up doing engineering in Formula One, because, that is the benchmark. And she was super chill and laid back. So that's what I really loved about it.
On a personal note, who is your favorite Formula One team?
I mean, the Formula One season was pretty thrilling, and that's also what I love talking about her, because she has joined the Cadillac team, which is a new American-led team that will join the grid as of next year. So obviously this is super exciting for Formula One teams, because we have no idea what this team can do, what they've been working on, and what to expect. That was a whole different element to our conversation. Why the change from Red Bull to Cadillac, and B, what to expect next season. And I think that is maybe a good transition to the interview itself with Andra Patricia Groapa. She is one of the women driving change in Formula One as an engineer. Hailing from Romania, Andra has made her mark in the F1 world. She worked for Red Bull Powertrains as a computational fluid dynamics CFD analysis engineer, and has been with the Cadillac F1 team since this year. As part of the advisory board for the Society of Women Engineers, Andra has been a vocal voice to encourage other girls and women to follow their passion and to join the world of motorsports. Andra, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Sophie, for that amazing entry and the warm welcome. It's lovely to be here with you.
Andra, for anyone not as familiar with these technical terms, can you describe to me in very easy language, what does a thermal aerodynamics engineer do? Because that is your current role.
Right. So if I am to put it into one word, that is simulations. So whenever we come up with a new component, a new concept of a new part, take the wing, for example, on the Formula One car, to see its efficiency, we normally run a test or go to the wind tunnel. That is extremely costly and takes a lot of time. So we can't afford to go through enough designs to find the most optimum one. So what we do, we employ simulations. We first test designs through simulations. We look at their aerodynamics and their thermal efficiency. And once we are happy with our results, with our design, we can then go to test experiments, wind tunnels, and then confirm whether that design is indeed what we need for the car or not. So simulations is basically our first line of defense, and that is what I do.
I love the way you say first line of defense. Is that what you've been doing for most of your career, or is that something very recent that you focused on and pivoted towards?
No, that's actually what I started doing very quickly after my studies. So I initially studied aerospace engineering, and the curriculum at the time wasn't very heavily focused on CFD, computational fluid dynamics. However, I had a keen interest in motorsport from back then, so I volunteered to be part of the Formula student team. And that's where I first learned of the importance and the need of simulations in our designs. So once I graduated with my bachelor's from aerospace, I chose to focus on CFD during my master's. And from there on, it was simply just following the path in different industry. I went from oil and gas to off-highway automotive to then finally motorsport, doing simulations simply in different fields and collecting different experiences in doing so.
So you always knew that you wanted to become an engineer?
No, actually. I went from wanting to be an actress to wanting to be a singer to wanting to work in finance, in about 500 million other things before I landed on engineering. And I wanted actually take this opportunity and tell people that it's fine not to know what you want to do and explore. Because when you finally find the thing you are meant to do, you will know. It will just feel right. And that's what happened to me. I only learned that I wanted to do engineering in my final year of high school, which is what we have before university in Romania. And it just clicked. I knew that that was it. So it was quite a journey to get to where I am today.
That's very interesting because obviously being an actress or a singer or, you know, whichever takes place on front stage. And now what you're doing is something that happens, I guess, more behind the scenes. Is that, do you still feel seen in the work you do? Because I find it so interesting in Formula One, specifically, so much work goes into those simulations and the planning and the mapping out, but most of the people only see what's happening on the grid on race day. Yes. So, yeah, how does that work for you?
Oh, it's a tremendous amount of work that goes in the background. I mean, we are a relatively small team for the target we have every year, and that is to develop the best car. So when you think about the fact that teams are usually only 100 people, a few hundred people, compared to a corporation that has thousands, tens of thousands, if not more, it's an insane task that everybody has to take. And I think the majority of us, we do it because we're so passionate about it. When we look at that car and we see it perform on the grid and we can tell that I worked on, that is me, I helped improve that or I helped develop that. That's really the recognition we need. When we see the car doing well, when we see the team being united, when we see the success we have internally and externally on the grid. And that is really the recognition that I need, at least.
One thing I actually wanted to ask you is, do you watch F1 yourself? Or is that like any other kind of job where you go in and you put in the hours and then you go home?
Oh, boy. You're putting me on the spot because I'm ashamed to say I don't, not anymore. I used to watch F1 religiously before I was working in F1. It was my passion. I used to not miss a race. And then I joined the industry and suddenly it all changed because I would watch a race and my heart would race with it as well. I would go through an emotional roller coaster. I felt like I was going to have a panic attack. I was so invested. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. I just need to know the standings at the end of the race and I'm happy. I don't need to know the rest. So I'm afraid, no, not anymore.
Were you into any kind of specific teams? Because you worked for Red Bull Powertrains and then you recently joined Cadillac, which is very exciting for F1 fans because they're a new American-led team that is joining the pit next year. How does that compare? Following a specific team, but then maybe needing to work for another team? Because it's obviously very competitive getting into these engineering roles.
Yes, it is an internal conflict, I'm not gonna lie. So when I learned I wanted to do engineering and join motorsport, I mentioned before that it was during my final year of high school. And I learned that by simply stumbling across accidentally Hangar 7 in Austria, which is one of Red Bull's museums. And that's when I was just mesmerized and I fell in love with Red Bull because it wasn't just a Formula One team. It was an ideology almost. It was like a sport, an extreme sport adventure. So I knew that if I am to start my journey into motorsports, I wanted it to be Red Bull because it wasn't just Formula One. It was skydiving. It was all the crazy stunts they are doing. It was the bike racing competitions. So I just loved that high adrenaline environment. And I'm so happy that I got to tick off the list that dream. But then Cadillac came along and I thought to myself, it's probably only going to be once or twice, if that, in an engineer's career, where a new team will join the grid. And it's such a unique opportunity, and having the chance to build something from scratch, to do things differently and better, and to truly make an impact and influence the developing period of this whole team and car. That's not going to come across often, and I need to take it. So I'm not going to lie, I feel very fortunate for the career I had so far.
This sounds very interesting, and we're going to come back to your current role at Cadillac later for sure, because I'm very intrigued. But I want to go back to your studies that you brought up, and the subjects that you studied are usually very male-dominated subject. Is it something that held you back at that moment, or that inspired you even more? Can you give us an insight into how that was for you in Romania at that time?
I think I left Romania. By that point in time, I don't think I had left the country more than 3 times in my life. And I left Romania with a very naive overview. But while a lot of people would probably look at that and think it was a disadvantage, I think it was also an advantage, because if I would have known that the rest of my life was going to be being part of a minority, it could be at that point in time when I was obviously a lot less mature and a lot more new to the world, it could have gotten to me maybe, and maybe I wouldn't have been where I am today. But stumbling into this with such a naivety and starry eyes, it wasn't even a problem. And I got there and I was like, oh, okay, yes, it is full of men here, but it's fine. And it just became second nature eventually. It's just, ultimately, everybody's, just like at work, is doing their job. In university, everybody's studying, everybody's helping each other. And I made a point out of not focusing on that, because it could have easily spiraled or become something I was going to focus on and let it get to me and intimidate me and maybe discourage me. But no, it ended up being okay, and I ended up having such amazing friends from the courses that I followed. So yes, it was heavily male dominated. I think in my master's I was the only woman in my class, whereas in my bachelor's I think we were 10 out of 80, and I don't think all of us ended up graduating. Some decided to change their course. So when in hindsight, when I look at things, I'm like, oh, okay. But back then I just, cracked on.
And maybe again, for someone like me who doesn't know as much about these different subject matters, you studied space engineering in your bachelor's, I believe, and in your master's, computational fluid dynamics. Is that sort of a normal path towards getting into engineering in F1, or are there different paths that all lead to, these kind of engineering roles?
Not quite. So it's not very usual. It's not unusual, but it's probably not the most straightforward path. And that is proven by my career as well, because it took me a while to get into F1. So the majority of the people working in F1, from what I've seen, have a mechanical engineering degree or a motorsports degree. And there is obviously, at least in the UK, where the hub of F1 is, there's a handful of universities that are being preferred because teams work closely with. So they know the intake that comes into universities and the graduates they release to the field. However, even though I knew I wanted to do motorsports, I went with an aerospace degree simply because I felt it was a more comprehensive degree at the time. So it has significant overlap with mechanical engineering while also still learning about aeronautical and aerospace fields. And I wanted to have that broader view of things because one thing I did know for sure at the time was I don't know what I don't know. And I wanted to be able to have a better view of the field and the options that I have once I graduate. I do encourage, though, everybody to study the curriculum that each university covers, because it can differ and it can change. But in my case, it so happened that aerospace gave me a much more complete view of the field, and it allowed me to get insights into the mechanical side of things and aerospace.
Did you have anyone at that time that you looked up to, or where you said, I want to end up like him or her?
I always get this question. I'm always worried I'm going to disappoint people when I say no. I don't think it's a bad thing. I know the person I want to become. I know who I want to be and who I strive to be. And that person develops and evolves always. And I had so many people that I crossed paths with that made an impact on me, so many people that inspired me, motivated me, people that I looked up to. But I always picked and chose the qualities and the skills I wanted from them and kind of built my own image of, right, that's the person I want to become and that's who I want to be. And, the goalpost is always moving. I'm always improving this version of myself that I want to become. And I think that's where I take my motivation from. From my own targets and goals and the person that I'm building in my mind, if that makes sense.
I mean, looking at what you've done in the recent years, you were also part of the Society of Women Engineers. You were part of the advisory board for quite some years. So I do feel like mentoring plays a big role, and you also want to be an ambassador for, women engineers. So would you say, even though you didn't have that one person, it is important that you have some people that you can turn to for advice along the way?
Absolutely. I didn't have that one person, but I had many people that absolutely shaped my career and myself as a professional and a person. And if I can share my experience with anybody, and if at least one person takes from this some motivation or some courage to pursue their dreams, then I know that this has been time well spent. So I absolutely think there is value in representation and mentoring, because it's a lot cheaper to learn from other people's mistakes than to learn from your own. And being part of SWE, the Society of Women Engineers, allowed me to connect with women more globally, internationally, through all the conferences that they organize, through mentorship and sponsorship as well. I think it's I'd be lying if I said it was a selfless role, because I take from it as much as I gave, I think, if not more. I learned from all the women I interacted with as well, and I tried to give back everything that I learned along the way. So, I think there's tremendous value in being part of this type of societies.
Well, yours is obviously a success story, because now you're here and we talk about all the incredible things that you've achieved. But if we dive into the stats, it's pretty clear that women engineers, particularly in F1, are pretty much underrepresented. I think there's some data from previous years that estimate about 6 to 13% of the female engineering force is female. Obviously, this has increased over the years, so I do think there's some merit in saying that there has been development and improvement. How would you assess the current state of women engineers as part of the overall F1 workforce?
So I think there is always room for improvement, but I do also think we need to be careful how we go about things. Based on my experience, there's two actions that I think we should focus on in order for diversity to happen naturally and be improved and not be forced through unrealistic diversity targets. I'd say one, improve education at early school levels, increase awareness and support for students to follow a single gender predominant field, and two, ensure that there is no hiring bias. I believe if we tackle these two things, we could be in a much better position, maybe a generation or two from now. And I believe we need to increase the pool of available female graduates if we want to be closer to gender parity in engineering. But I don't believe we should force companies through legislation or allow companies to make statements with unrealistic targets like the sound of by 2027 we're going to have a 50-50 female-male engineering workforce. I think this could lead to favoring unsuitable candidates, and frankly I don't think it helps anybody, not the company nor the workforce or our cause as women in industry. So yeah, I think diversity can absolutely improve in the workforce. I also think we came a very long way, so we need to keep a perspective there.
There have also been other initiatives to increase female drivers in motorsport more genuinely. Just to name two, there's Girls on Track or More Than Equal. How do these initiatives come together? Do you think they all have their own merit? Is it good to foster them individually, or does it need to have a broader, unified approach of making sure that there is more involvement overall?
I think they are amazing, to be honest, and I encourage everybody to join them. As long as we keep the same common goal, and that is encourage women to join the workforce, ensure that once they join the workforce, we have good retention within the workforce. If that is the goal, increase representation, increase awareness towards what can be improved, encourage students to pursue it. If that is the common goal, then absolutely, I think there is value in joining all of them, whether they are working as a separate entity or together. We're still going to have the same impact. I simply joined SWE because it put me in contact with engineers from all over the world, whereas I believe Girls on Track is a UK-based organization. And I also wanted to work with all fields across engineering because I think they are all heavily male-dominated, not only motorsport. But if you know for sure that that's what you want to pursue, a career in motorsport, then organizations like Girls on Track or More Than Equal, there are tremendous opportunities, and I encourage everybody to join for good networking, good mentorship, good support, proposing change and leading change. I think they make so much impact in the industry for sure.
Being in touch with so many women across the world, would you say there are common roadblocks that you have overcome so far? And also specifically looking at your own journey, what has changed in these past 5, 10, maybe even 15 years?
I think our own confidence changed. If you were to have asked me 10 years ago if I thought there were going to be as many women as we have now in the industry, I probably would have been a bit skeptical. I mean, I wasn't in motorsport myself at the time. But looking around now, I mean, right now at Cadillac, we are over 20% women. This is quite high considering the F1 industry. And looking around the office, and I see women that I talk to every day, that doesn't come across often. And I think we have made so much progress in that area. We are not only attracting students to engineering degrees, we are ensuring that they actually graduate, and then we welcome them into the industry a lot more. I think the bias has been definitely decreased in that I see in the hiring managers, and I think there is more accent being put on hiring the best candidate for the role and not the person that they want to see. We still have a way to go for sure. I think right now, if I am to say something that I see that I think needs some work, is the glass ceiling for women. I think we're doing a tremendous work in welcoming women to the industry, but I'm yet to see a whole lot of women in leadership positions actually making more change than they could, and being given the opportunities to make a bigger impact. So I think it's a great start. We still have a little way to go, but we are on the right path for sure.
So when do you think we're going to see a woman leading one of the F1 teams?
I mean, I'd like to say in the near future. I think the world is getting a lot more open to the idea that good skill and good qualities can come from everywhere, even the person that doesn't look the way they imagined it in their minds. So I'm hoping in the next decade for sure we're gonna have one, but maybe I'm optimistic. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell.
One thing I always find interesting when we talk about women engineers, that there are sort of two takes on this debate. There are some women, and that's what we're doing here, and that's what was done in a BBC article that referenced you, for instance, is that, we're talking about these women who are making a change. At the same time, though, and that's also something I can understand, there are some women saying, I don't want to be recognized as the women or the woman participating in something, but I want to be perceived as a hardworking individual who made it because of the hard work they put in. What is your take on that? Do you think we need both?
I always pendulate between these two. I think it's completely valid for women to want recognition based on merit and not gender. Being labeled potentially as, I don't know, the woman who made it can feel sometimes reductive, as if success is conditional or surprising. But if I am to speak about my own experience, because I did find myself very often in the category of not wanting to come out with anything. I think it's also about how we portray the challenges this field poses to us. But then again, what career doesn't pose challenges? What career that you're treating with passion, a career you're serious about, a career you want to make successful or build a strong foundation, something worth pursuing? What career doesn't come with challenges? Nothing good ever comes easy. And yes, it so happens that motorsport is indeed a heavily male-dominated environment. But I knew that when I joined, and I believe my duty as a female engineer or a female in engineering is twofold. One, be aware of things that are not productive or unfair, and always make sure you improve the environment for myself and everybody like me. And two, to some extent also adapt to the majority. And this might be a very unpopular view, but I chose to be part of a majority. And if I walk in all guns blazing, trying to change everything to suit me, then I can't think of myself as a team player. So I think we need to accept to some extent maybe that challenges are part of life. And when we pick a career, we simply pick our hearts. And to be very clear, I'm not suggesting we turn ever a blind eye to tolerate discrimination or racism or other issues like that. But we do need to always keep a balanced view and not focus on the negatives only. And I think that's really the reasoning behind my apprehension towards being called maybe the woman who made it, or being told that I'm a trailblazer or things like that. I am, however, talking to you today because I also strongly believe representation matters. And if at least one person watches or listens to what we talked about today, and they think, okay, maybe I can do this, maybe I should pursue a career in engineering, then that is the best use of my time, I think. So, yeah, I see both sides of things, if that makes sense.
And I do think to some extent, obviously, we also need to stop framing them in a specific way and also look at what they have achieved and what we can learn from them. I want to go back to F1 as a sport. Even though you said it's like any other industry, I do think motorsport per se is a bit different maybe to other industry, just because of the engine. There is a lot of testosterone, stereotypically speaking. And I do think in one interview you mentioned that in F1 the highs are really high and the lows are really low. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I did say that, and I meant two things. On the emotional side, the highs can be very highs when we're winning. Everybody's so invested, everybody's so passionate about what we're doing. We're working really hard to build the best car we possibly can. When we're winning, oh man, the emotions are running high, everybody's happy, ecstatic. And when we're losing, we are so disappointed, so sad, not only for our work, but for our peers' work. And it's, like I said, it's always an emotional roller coaster from that point of view. But equally, I also meant that I really don't want anybody who ever thinks about joining motorsport to join with starry eyes thinking everything is ever perfect. Everything good, like I said before, I don't think comes easy. And yes, motorsport is an insane place. It's amazing to be part of. It's always so adrenaline filled. No day is the same. You have perks that I don't think you can find in other 9-to-5 jobs. I mean, I'm in a desk job myself, predominantly desk job, but I still find that my job can be very different some days. Some days I need to pinch myself. You some days you have BBC coming over. Some days you have the drivers. It's things like that at least for me are making the job quite dynamic and interesting some days. But equally, it is a job that is intense, and it's going to require of you some days to work long hours. It's going to require you some days to maybe travel and be away from home often. These are compromises that when you join, yes, you're going to have a job that is so different and so much better than you can maybe dream of, but then again, you also have to give to the job sometimes. So it's a two-way street, and I'm trying to simply ensure that people who join, they know both sides of things, because it can be hard, it can be intense, and it can require a lot of you. So simply be prepared. If you want to join, know that this is also a possibility.
Is there anything you do to wind down after a stressful day at work? Any hobby for all the stress and emotions, for the highs and the lows?
I like to say I'm a vegetable. I go home some days during the week if it's in the middle of the week and I know I'm already tired from the first half of the week, but I still have half the week to go. I like to just go home and be pampered by my partner and enjoy myself and recharge my batteries. And when the weekend comes, that's when I'm trying to ensure that I catch up with my friends, that I'm up to my exercises at the gym, trying always keep a balanced lifestyle, if that makes sense, because it can be so easy, to wake up 7 a.m., go to work, stay at work until 7 again, come home, eat, go to bed, repeat. So we need to be very intentional about how we spend our time and ensure that it's also healthy and fun and productive at the same time.
Let's talk about Cadillac as we move towards the end of this interview. So we talked about your journey. We talked about your time at Red Bull and that was actually a dream come true for you. Why the change now? And what can we expect from Cadillac next year?
The change was simply because I wanted to take what I think is a very unique opportunity that doesn't come along often, and I didn't want to miss it. I always wanted to be part of something where I can make an impact, and Cadillac being new, being a new team, being in its infancy and having a lot less employees than the majorities of the team opened up opportunities for me to make a bigger impact and shape the future of the team in some way. And that attracted me loads about the opportunity. In terms of what we can expect from the team, I think it's going to come with a lot of surprises. Maybe in the first couple of years, we're going to be finding our footing. We're going to see what works, what doesn't work. It's going to be our first time on the grid next year, so we don't know exactly what to expect. We don't know exactly how our car performs, how our drivers find the car. So it's going to be a period of simply finding our footing, figuring out our processes. But realistically speaking, we're hoping that is a fairly short period. And after 2-3 seasons, we are finally fighting for the midfield, and then in the long run, obviously be in the top. So don't sell ourselves short. There is a lot of potential, and we have so many good people here working so hard. And I think there's going to be a lot of surprises next year, especially with the new regulations coming as well.
Long term, that's what you mentioned right now. Do you have a vision for yourself? Is that F1 for the foreseeable future?
I think so. I will never say anything with certainty, because I finally am at an age where I accept that I don't know what I don't know. And even though I'm a control freak, I have to accept that there's always things that you can't predict or prepare for. But my ideal view is, yes, stay in F1 and be in a leadership position where I can make even more of an impact. Currently, I'm in a heavily technical role, but I love working with people, and I love ensuring that people work at their full potential. And I'm striving to get to that level where I can truly squeeze out of everybody their best and ensure that we truly work as a united team always. And yeah, I'm hoping that a few years from now I'll still be in F1, and I'll be on my way higher.
Well, I'm curious to follow along and see what's next for you. You also mentioned you want to be in a leadership role. Is there anything else you want to tell our listeners, male or female, who are interested in the career in F1, specifically in engineering, what they should pay attention to, or some advice that you can give?
I think the young graduates or students, don't prioritize having the best grades you can. Always involve yourself in societies, and ensure you get a hands-on experience, whether that is volunteer to a garage down the road or join a team like Formula Student. Get some hands-on experience, because teams and hiring managers, they truly love to see students who have gone out of their way to do more than just the academic requirements. And that's how you truly stand out of the crowd. And for the adult, how should I call them? I'm sorry. For the more mature applicants, ensure you always emphasize how your skills are truly relatable to the field you're applying for. Because sometimes to a hiring manager or maybe a people and culture person who comes across your CV first, it may not be obvious why you are the right candidate for the role if it's not already a CV that comes from a motorsport industry. So make sure your CV is always emphasizing why your skill is applicable to the role you're applying for, and make that truly obvious and sell that. So yeah, that's what I would tell to them in terms of application advice, and what I see a lot coming our way. In terms of what to expect from the workforce, like I said before, high highs and sometimes, rarely, some low lows. You're gonna have to work hard, but the rewards are amazing.
And as you also mentioned in another interview, drown out the noise and dream big. Nothing is impossible. And your journey has clearly shown that it is possible if you work hard and put in the hours.
If I can do it, everybody can.
Andra, thanks so much for taking the time. And we are curious to see what's happening in F1 with you and, of course, with Cadillac joining.
Thank you.
And that's it for today. If you have any topics that you would like us to cover, send us an email or send us a message on our Instagram, Women in Sports Podcast. See you next time.